I think that's, I also wanted to remind you to vote on November 7th. There is a referendum on the, not on the ticket, but on the ballot, which asks if you would like the state to have a certain amount of money, which is, I'm not sure the exact amount, but matching funds to the libraries in New Jersey that are ready to either build or to repair or update their libraries. So please read about it and decide who you want to vote for, but vote. And on that note, would you turn off your phones? I told him to do that purposely. So and I want to thank Joy Yaggett, who has come tonight to tape the program. We appreciate it. Now, we have a series of questions that we have sent to the candidates ahead of time, so they have some time to think about it. And we go down the list so that each candidate gets to be the first one to respond. And we will start with a question, with a statement. I'm a little sublungent tonight. Forgive me. We'll start with statements up to 2 minutes long by each candidate, and we will start with Dean. I think you'll all agree I can call you by your first names. Dean, you want to start first?
Yes. Can we stand there?
What?
Do it here or do it there? Do it here?
Yeah, unless there's a problem.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much, and to the Hilton Neighborhood Association for hosting us this evening and for putting this on every year. It's an incredible and important opportunity for us to all engage together on the important issues as we get closer to Election Day. I'm deeply honored to be here and to have this opportunity to speak to you, to meet you, collaborate with you, and for you to get to know me a little bit better. I am Dean Daffis. I am running for the Township Committee. I feel deeply committed to serving this incredible town that we're all so fortunate to live in. I've exhibited a lot of commitment already in the short period that I've lived here in terms of working with the coalition and the library and the Green Team and the various groups in town working on social justice issues, and of course, obviously in politics locally here. And I feel uniquely qualified both personally and professionally to meet the important challenges that lie ahead for all of us in our community. When I go and I speak to people in town, all across town, I hear the same thing over and over again. A lot of people don't feel like they belong to the same Maplewood. A lot of people feel left out, disenfranchised. Some people feel forgotten, that the new generation or the new demographic in town has replaced them. There is a significant lack of institutional equity in a lot of areas where we can improve in terms of access to services, in terms of affordability, public safety. We're going to be talking about policing a lot tonight, I hope. In terms of economic development all across town, and of course, in terms of our schools. Our schools are under a separate governing body, of course, but the issues that our kids face there reflect the issues in our community. And I look forward to speaking to you a little bit more about those issues individually this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I neglected to say that our timers are Florence Magyar and Jim Buchanan. And for the candidates, Florence will hold up a 15-second sign to give you a signal that you're almost finished. Okay, Vic, please.
Known as the Hammers.
Vic, please. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Vic DeLuca, and I'm glad to be here, and thank you for coming out and showing your interest in the community and discussing the ideas of how we can move forward. I'm particularly pleased to be here and thank the Hilton Neighborhood Association for having this forum. As the association's first president, some years back. I'm really proud of the work we've done over our last 22 years. I think we've brought the neighborhood together, and we've made our voices loud and clear in the community, something that didn't exist 22 years ago. You know, I've been on the Township Committee for 18 years, 12 of them as mayor, and I tell you, I really love this job. It's a privilege to serve as a Township Committee member. I get to work with great colleagues and hundreds of residents, many of you in this room, to make Maplewood the best it can be. I think I've done a good job. I work hard. I get things done. I've been around the entire community. I'm very accessible. I believe government is a vehicle for positive social change, and I'm proud to promote progressive values in this community and the need to respect and welcome all people. I've worked to foster civic engagement and make government more transparent. And I've expanded opportunities for people of color to take jobs with the township and to serve on our boards and committees. Our property values have consistently gone up while I was in office. Crime has decreased, and our recreation and cultural facilities have expanded. We purchased the Woodland and the former church next door, which we're using for senior activities. This year we enacted the ordinance to create the Senior Advisory Committee. We're embarking on SOMA, 2 towns for all ages. We've got silver certification in sustainable Jersey. And I've been a staunch advocate for social and economic justice. I've been a clear voice for inclusion and acceptance against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and misogyny, and against those trying to take away rights from the LGBT community and those seeking to demonize immigrants. Please, I ask if you would consider voting for me again on November 7th.
Thank you. And Mike?
Hi. My name is Mike Summersgill, running for Township Committee. I think it's loud enough, I can go louder. I again want to thank the Hilton Neighborhood Association for holding this debate. The Hilton Neighborhood Association does great things for the Hilton neighborhood, Springfield Avenue, and the town as a whole, and I'm proud to be a part of that organization. A little bit more about myself. I've lived in town for 9 years, all of it in the Hilton neighborhood. I have three kids. The oldest, Bree, started kindergarten at Tuscan this year, so she's got back to school night that is happening.
Yes, you could hardly park in front of my house tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
In the Hilton Neighborhood Association's defense, this debate was not scheduled in conflict with back to school night. They changed it, so we've always had this date. But it may have been more work getting the kids ready for bed and bathed and fed and their stories than it will be doing the debate tonight. So I feel like this is all downhill from here. I'm a member of several organizations in town. I've got a chance to work with you all. I was a member of the Senior Advisory Committee, the inaugural one this year. I was a member of the Pool Advisory Committee until the Township Committee voted to remove me from the Pool Advisory Committee. I'm a member of the Hilton Neighborhood Association, member of the Hilton Neighborhood Association Executive Board, a board member at the Y. I've been active in SOMA, 2 towns for all ages, probably more last year than this year. I'm a fixture in the community where there's somewhere I feel like I can do good. Like many residents in town, you get on the train, you go to work in the morning, you get off the train, you come home, you try to get home in time for dinner or bedtime or homework. And you trust that the government is doing the right thing and that you've got your best interests at heart and that we're making good decisions in town hall. That's not always the case, and that's why I got engaged in running for Maplewood Township Committee. And I'll share some ideas of how we could do better tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the questions now. And the first question deals with pedestrian safety. There is still a growing concern throughout town about the speed of traffic and the safety of pedestrians and other motorists. What would you do as Township Committee member to address this problem? And we'll start with Vic.
So there is a problem, and I would absolutely agree. We're a walking community, and we have to make sure that it's safer than it is right now. People have to slow down, have to respect pedestrians, and just take a little bit of time to get where you have to go and honor the rules of the road. This is what we've done. It's based on 3 E's: enforcement, engineering, and education. We need to enforce the laws, and working with the police department, we've been pushing them to do more. I'm disappointed with their productivity so far in this area. They need to do more. We need to engineer better. We've been doing that with certain crosswalks and bump outs and striping, and we need to do that. And we need to educate folks. Again, slowing down, no texting when you're driving, no texting when you're walking, making sure that you're safe. Right now we're working with the New Jersey Department of Transportation on Prospect Street. We're working with Essex County to do some work on Valley. We're going to reconfigure both Baker and Tuscan. We're going to put a new traffic light at the corner of Valley and Pearson. Do I still have more time? Yes. Okay. And we're also working on Irvington Avenue and on Rutgers Street. I met in this room with a group of residents. We're going to be taking a look at some things we've done. We've already put double stop signs up on Franklin and Hilton. We're going to be looking at some other measures. And of course, we've put speed humps on Jacoby, 44th, Brown, Harding, and Prospect streets. And we've just designated a morning drop-off location on Boyden Avenue across from Seth Boyden School. So incrementally, we're making some physical changes, and as I said, engineering. We're working on educating. We're working with the state to do that. I'm actually chairing a session at the League of Municipalities in November, talking just about this, and hopefully I'll learn as much as I can share what we've done in Maplewood.
Thank you. Mike?
Sure. So I applaud the township's efforts in the past year. I mean, there was a traffic summit. There was a significant effort to bring together stakeholders inside the government, outside the government, to address pedestrian safety. We're not there. I think we all recognize that, and it's something that we need to continue to work on. I myself have really been advocating to fix the situation on Tuscan and Valley, and it's really a situation where if we can get the signal changed, we won't be directing cars into a lit crosswalk which students and commuters use to walk across that street. I think that the reality is that the traffic and pedestrian safety issues are largely a volume of the amount of people we have in town. So as we've increased density and we've increased the number of cars, there's going to be more accidents and more incidents. And it's one of those unintended consequences of really overdevelopment. And so I do worry about these kids going to school in the Boyden area with the apartment buildings going up there and the increased traffic. If you come out of the Wawa or the Bank of America at the end of Boyden Avenue, you can already see the impact. So I think it's something that you have to understand and think about as one of the other reasons why we need to have a solid plan for development that takes into account the current residents and not just the future ones. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dean?
Thank you, Carol. Pedestrian safety must remain of utmost concern, and we have done a lot in the past year, as both Mike and Mayor DeLuca have already delineated, in terms of doing better in redesigning a few of our intersections and restriping our crosswalks and putting speed bumps where necessary, where people said, we really need to slow traffic down here. But we need to do more. As Mike suggested, our population is growing, and with all of these residential, with all the residential development, especially in this side of town, we are already stressed on our streets, and we have not made proper pedestrian accommodations to promote this idea of walkability on Springfield Avenue. So, across from Seth Boyden, we have that new apartment building going up, 30 condos, I believe it is. And if you go there in the morning or in the evening during prime pickup and drop-off times, it's already stressed. Imagine how it's going to be going forward, not too far from now. So all across town, pedestrian safety must remain a concern, and I think it is an issue of better design, and the traffic calming study last year was very helpful in that regard, but it's also an issue of enforcement. We certainly lack on the enforcement part, and we must do better. We must do better in terms of having patrols in areas that we know are problems and issue tickets and really take it a little bit more seriously and be actively engaged with our police in the issue of enforcement in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, and we will start with Mike, is about police force training. What do you think the Township Committee should do to ensure that our police force members are more racially responsible? Please be specific.
Thank you. The incidents of the past year have really damaged the public's trust in our town's institutions. The video and the audio of the police behavior was shocking. And the Township Committee's lack of action for over a year was even more shocking. It sent a terrible message to members of our community that they're not valued, and that we're not concerned about their safety. Then, when we pivoted to finally take action, it was the most severe action that could be taken, and it begs the question of why it wasn't done when these incidents were raised to the Township Committee's attention originally. Any of the behaviors or the activities that have been taken since, vote of no confidence, negotiating a retirement, suspension, maybe not the suspension, but the vote of no confidence, those could have been taken right after the incident. And I question why we leave someone in power if we don't think that they're capable of doing the job, and why we didn't remove them as soon as that became to light. And the result we're seeing now is that we didn't execute good judgment, and now we've got a lawsuit for one of the individual and a hefty payout for the other. And so you look at those damages and that dollar amount, that's a good indication of the quality of decision-making and judgment that was made in the situation. I'm the leader. I've run an organization with 700 people. I've dealt with HR. I've dealt with all sorts of different situations, both on managers and employees. I understand how you handle these situations, and you don't put yourself, the public, or your customer safety at risk when you have incidents like these that come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean?
The video that was released this summer brought to light, for those who didn't already know, that we do have significant issues of bias in our policing in Maplewood. And we're not different in that regard. All across the country, we decided decades ago that we were going to paramilitarize our police departments in an effort to fight crime. What we know now is that doesn't work. And as Mike said, it further erodes the trust in the police department and our relationship with police. The answer is community policing. And we get to community policing through better training, through anti-bias training, cultural competency training, de-escalation training. It's clear there was no de-escalation. For 1.3 miles, these officers were chasing after and herding these children of ours into Irvington. 1.3 miles. There were many opportunities to de-escalate the situation. Through continued procedural criminal justice training. It shouldn't stop at the academy. It should continue. I'm an attorney. I still go to classes. I'm required to keep my license. It is absolutely vital and one of our pressing biggest challenges coming up to reboot our police department, to make it more open and transparent and accountable, and to work with the community in doing so, community input and collaboration. Otherwise, we're never going to change the culture that currently exists. And officers are behind that effort. I've spoken to many fine officers that we have here who want that. They want to move to a community policing model. And they feel that we will all be much safer for it. That's what I would look forward to doing. Thank you.
Vic?
So, there's no question what happened on July 5th, 2016 was horrendous, was inappropriate, and we took the action that was we were allowed to do according to the law. Mr. Summersgill just doesn't understand the state law. When the executive of the police department is brought up on charges, and he was brought up on charges shortly after that incident, or it was a complaint, automatically that has to get sent to the Essex County prosecutor. That's what we did. I think you'll find when the report comes out from our independent experts looking at this, they will confirm that we took the appropriate steps in handling this. We were very disappointed by the prosecutor. We thought the prosecutor delayed it. I'm not even sure that they investigated it. And then internally, we were disappointed by how long it was taking our own captain to do what had to be done. So that's when we decided to move forward and release the tapes. And we took action on August 1st. I think it was decisive action. And within 90 days now, we have a resolution. We've removed the captain, and we'll be removing the chief next week. But let's talk about the question. The question was about training. So here's some of the training that we're going to need to implement, and we're going to be working very closely with the acting chief and the new chief to do that. Crowd management and crowd control principles. We didn't do it on July 5th. We need to do better. Procedural justice and community policing. These concepts focus on making sure that people feel they're treated with respect by the police officers. If they're treated with respect and they feel that, they'll honor the request by the officers. De-escalation training, as Dean mentioned, absolutely critical. Dealing with the crowds before things get out of hand. We have 17 officers that are scheduled to go for de-escalation training in October. Peer intervention, very important. We had captains and lieutenants, sergeants, who didn't even suggest to the chief during the event that things were wrong and they should have been rethought. So we need to figure out how to give training to our command staff so that they can intervene with peers and say, hey, slow down, let's think about what we're doing and maybe change the tactics. We need to do internal leadership development so that we have folks coming up from the ranks who are going to be our next level of leadership. We're doing training on our welcoming community, make sure that we're respecting everyone regardless of their immigration status. We need to build a stronger relationship with the youth of our community. It's not working. Somehow there's a huge disconnect between our police and the youth, and we need to work. Already we've been working on a monthly open gym, working with former Sergeant Mike Morrison and Township Committeeman Frank McGehee. I was at the last one last month, and it's just terrific to have all these kids and police officers coming together in a very supportive atmosphere, one we think is going to build trust and support going forward. So the mentoring is important, the training is important, and we need to have oversight by the Township Committee to make sure that all these things are being done.
Thank you. And the next question deals with the development in the Hilton area. In the Hilton area, we have the Avalon Apartments, the rentals across from the police headquarters, the rentals across from Seth Warden's school, and the additional building at Mwood Commons on Burnett Avenue. Do you think we have reached a saturation point with new development in the Hilton area? Why or why not? And we'll start with Dean.
I do definitely believe that we reached a saturation point. Enough is enough with the residential development in Maplewood everywhere, especially in this area of town. Where are all of those people going to go? Where are the pedestrian accommodations? Where are they going to walk? Where are they going to go to the supermarket? What I'm getting at is that our focus, and my focus, if I'm so fortunate to be elected, would be to focus on commercial development along Springfield Avenue. Springfield Avenue used to be, as those of you who grew up here and go back many generations, it used to be thriving and vibrant and beautiful. And now we've accepted this idea that all we can do is auto body shops. And yes, we have a few great restaurants who continue to thrive and doing well, but there really isn't a hot zone that promotes walkability at all. And so we really need to stop doing that. I would say in a larger context, I think we need to professionalize our development process in Maplewood. We have a lot of talent in town that we could use. It should never be one person negotiating a deal that then goes to the planning board for essential review and yes, let's do this. We should involve our architects in town, our land use folks, our financial analysts to make sure that it is indeed a deal worthy of pursuing, negotiate in the best way possible for our town. Are we getting money for a park? Are we getting parking spaces? What are we going to get out of a deal when we are giving up very important land to a developer? And there's so much more to say to this, but I'm definitely out of time, and I appreciate your courtesy.
Thank you. Vic?
So the answer is yes. I think that we've reached our saturation in the Hilton area, except for one development, which I'll talk about in a moment. I don't feel the same way about Springfield Avenue. I think we can continue to develop on Springfield Avenue. We've been working on mixed-use development. I have a different perspective than Dean on this. I think that we have built commercial development on Springfield Avenue. We've got Walgreens, Wawa. We have Davies property, Cornbread. The Jewelry Mart is going to be commercial on the first floor, residential on top. I think Springfield Avenue does have the capacity to take more residential properties, mixed-use properties, a combination of retail and residential. That does have adequate travel lanes and bus transportation, has jitneys to the train station, so I think that would work. The one area in Hilton that I would very much want to continue to pursue for development of residential is in the former Maplewood Building Specialties, which is just on the other side of the DPW lot. We are talking with developers who have a contract for that property to build 173 assisted living units, and these will be affordable assisted living units. 50% of these units will be for Medicaid eligible people. These are folks who are not going to be able to afford getting into Winchester, who want to stay in the community. These are for our parents who we want to live close to us, that really our homes are not suitable for them because of stairs and whatever else they need. So these will be smaller units. These will be individual units, studios and one bedrooms. It would be for an assisted living population, and we're working with the developer to make that happen. I think that is a huge win for Maplewood, and that's the one that I would pursue in the Hilton section.
Thank you. Mike?
I've been living in Maplewood for nine years. I've heard the story about affordable living before. I've heard about senior housing before, right? Actually, stone's throw from here. So until it's done, I don't think we can count that as a success. The developers are going to do what are in the developer's best interest. That's just the way that it works. And where I see government's role is to set those guide rails about what we want, so that we can move the developers towards that intersection of what's good for them and profitable and what's good for us, our town, and our community. Examples of that could be that the new Avalon Bay apartments, the units along Springfield Avenue could have had a townhouse front. They could have had a stoop. They could have had a welcoming community feel to them instead of being a garage and a series of utility meters. The other thing that I want to highlight when we continue to oversaturate the neighborhood and our town in general is that our infrastructure can't sustain it. And we saw that with the post office redevelopment. That building was put in, high density, many apartments, and then we had to upgrade the sewer system in order to support that many people. We saw the Avalon Bay apartment building burn down, half of it, when it was being constructed. And that was right across the street from our fire department. And the reason for that is because our fire department doesn't have the necessary ladder equipment to service a building like that. And I worry about them from a training perspective when they need to go door to door, hallway to hallway, to save someone when there's actually people inside that building. And I would hate to see loss of life because we were trying to cram more people into a smaller area because we thought we could intensify ourselves out of good governance and good conservative fiscal policies. So it's a real concern for me as well as the rest of the people in this room, I'm sure.
Thank you. Okay, the next question deals with the main library expansion. Do you support the plan for the expansion of the main library? Please give your reasons. If yes, what would you do to help pass in the November election the state referendum to support the building or expansion of libraries? And we'll start with Vic. I don't know if you're allowed to comment on that.
Of course. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to vote on November 7th for the library bond issue. Very important. We need to make sure that gets out there. We will work pretty hard through the Library Association with our senators and assembly people. We got them on board the bill because this is an opportunity. This is the opportunity for us to use private funds, local funds, and get state funds to help us build this library. I spoke the other night, and essentially I'll say what I said then. It's an opportunity that we can't miss. The timing is now. It's a lot of money, $22 million, and that includes bonding, interest, and all that. But it's a lot of money, and if we can get 50% plus from the state and private funds, that is a huge, huge investment in our community. And quite frankly, the main library branch is used and is just not able to keep up. We don't have the appropriate facilities there. We have problems with leakage and water and asbestos, so it needs a lot of work just to get up to standards. And so I'm very much in favor of this project, but we do need to get the state funding and the private funding to make it work. I did want to say one thing about Mr. Summerskill's previous statement that we didn't have the appropriate firefighting equipment, and that is totally bunk. There's no way we would put you in danger. We have the firefighting equipment. A building like Avalon Bay, all these buildings that go up are sprinklered. We don't use a ladder to fight these fires. They're sprinklered. You can fight them floor to floor through a pipe that goes into the building. So don't believe for 1 minute that anything that happened at Avalon Bay at that fire was because we didn't have a ladder across the street. That's ridiculous.
Thank you.
So just to respond to the last section there. So I was not there for fighting the fire. I don't know what decision was made. I suspect they may have let it burn because there wasn't life at risk. With that being said, we do not have a ladder truck. We do get that from mutual aid. It does work. But as we continue to put a ladder truck that meets a specific height, but as we continue to put up these types of buildings, those requirements, we have things we have to think about. As moving on to the library expansion, if you were here last year, and you will keep me honest on this one, I had a similar answer. I still haven't made my determination yet on the library expansion. I'm following the plans closely. I was concerned about one of the proposals, which was to rip down the previous renovation that was done. It just kind of bothers me that we build something and then 30 years later we do it again, and it's like, why don't we just get it right and build something that can last 100 years? I do agree with Mayor DeLuca about supporting the referendum. If that's state money that we can bring to our community, I think that we would be silly to not take advantage of it. But as far as the actual plans for the library, I continue to watch them like anyone else and assess, can we afford it, and is it adding value that we don't currently have with our facilities?
Thank you. Dean?
Yes, Carol, thank you. I absolutely support the expansion. It's critical that we do it now because of this opportunity for matching state funds. The last time the legislature did this was, I think, 17 years ago. So if we wait another 17, 15 years, it's only going to get more expensive. Labor costs rise every year. They don't get more expensive. I think, cheaper rather. I think everybody agrees that the building on Baker Street is crumbling. The infrastructure is a mess. The ground level is flooded. We don't have enough outlets. We keep basically doing deferred maintenance on the building. While Hilton is thriving and doing well and was recently refurbished, the main library, and I hate using that term, there is one library, by the way, the Baker Street branch and the Hilton branch. There's no main and secondary. It's one library, two arms of one incredible library in our community. So the building can't function to meet current needs, so this isn't a vanity project. As far as the concept that's been brought forth thus far, it does add incredible value to the community. It gives us access to more meeting rooms, to children's programming that we don't currently have, and everything that the community has said that they want. And we owe it to the community. The library should reflect who we are. We have 25,000 residents, 20,000 people have library cards, and every month 100 new library cards are being issued. So the library is an important public service to our community, the cornerstone of our community, and we should do whatever we can to do it right, and we owe it to the next generation to do so. And please vote yes on the referendum. We really, really need those state funds. Thank you.
Thank you. The next to the last question is a general question. Besides our high taxes, what do you think is Maplewood's most pressing problem, and what would you do to solve it? And we'll start with Mike.
Thank you. Obviously, this is still related to taxes, hard to get away from it. I've been disappointed in the progress on Springfield Avenue. I've lived in the Hilton neighborhood for 9 years, patronizing the businesses for 9 years, the East Side Fitness, Chinese food, it was Harry's Cafe, I think it was Meow Cafe before that. I work out of the rack many times during the year. It's one of my kind of home away from home. But we've got over $200 million in investment into that special improvement district, and we're just not seeing the progress. It still struggles. The avenue's riddled with abandoned lots, empty storefronts. While they are great places for DAPUS and DeLuca signs, they don't do anything for the community and the businesses that are on the neighborhood, on the street. I think it's a shame that we don't change what we're doing about Springfield Avenue. If we want different results, we need different people, we need different policies. You know, I was disappointed to see that Mayor DeLuca was involved with negotiating the liquor license from Cornbread from Springfield Avenue down into the village. We need the liquor licenses to stay on Springfield Avenue if we want Springfield Avenue to become a destination. We need a vibrant township needs 2 or 3 successful business districts. So that includes the Irvington Avenue Business District as well. There's a focus on the village. I think we need to have a focus on Springfield Avenue. And I think we'll be in the same situation 10 years from now if we don't make a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean?
I think aside from affordability, public safety. Public safety is really a big concern in our community right now. We want everyone to feel safe everywhere, and we are at a critical place. We have an amazing opportunity right now to reboot our police department, which would in turn make us all safer all across town. And I could bring my legal expertise and my expertise in hiring and staffing to the table, which I think will be very helpful as we start training new officers and over time changing the culture that currently exists so that everyone feels safe, officers are respected, and crime continues to go down even more. The other than public safety, economic development, Springfield Avenue, we must do better. I agree with Mike on that. There are a lot of local businesses that open and then they close because we don't do much to support them. I just met the wonderful former proprietor of Ito's Cakes, and he was at Steve's barbershop, and I ran into him while I was shaking hands along the avenue, and he said, you know, I love it here. I wanted to stay here, but I didn't have the support that I needed to make it happen. And we could do that. And it takes a lot more than just taking pictures at a ribbon cutting and saying, hey, on Facebook, buy local. You really have to have a campaign behind that. You really need to connect our local businesses with all the state resources that there are to make them successful and to encourage them to thrive and to keep that money here in Maplewood, not outside of Maplewood. So those two things are really, really very pressing to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vic?
So, as I go knock on doors and speak to folks, it's hard not to talk about taxes. People want to talk about taxes. They're very concerned about it, so I think we have to work hard. I'm hoping that Phil Murphy gets to be governor, and we work with him to try to reorient some of our funding of our schools. We can bring some more funding for the schools. That will help with our tax problem here. 2 other issues, I think, beyond taxes. Number 1, the train. New Jersey Transit is in horrible shape. They used to be one of the best transport operations in the country, in the world actually, and now they're just second rate at best. We need to make sure that we have a reliable train system from Maplewood to New York City. If people who are moving here, buying our homes as we're ready to sell, lose confidence in their ability to get to New York on a 1-seat, less drama train ride, they're not going to move here. So the train for Maplewood is absolutely essential. Second problem beyond those 2 is making sure that we have one community. We've seen other places around where you get divisions on race, you get divisions on income, you get divisions on geography, and all this talk about Springfield Avenue and all that. Fundamentally, there are issues of race and class that are involved that have to be addressed. And if you want to see where that happened, you can look in Montclair. We had an Upper Montclair and the rest of Montclair. And there was clear division there. And we have to work here to make sure we're one community. And we've always talked about a one-town Maplewood and thinking about how we're doing development and thinking about how we're offering opportunities for folks. When we're making public investments, we're making them with everyone in mind. And that's very important as we go forward. We cannot allow us to be divided by fear or by perceptions or by actual bias and discrimination. And I'm very concerned about that, and I've been working throughout my tenure on the Township Committee to make sure that we address that front and center.
Thank you. And the last question is a general one. What do you have to offer that would make us want to vote for you that you haven't already said? Yes. And we'll start with Dean.
Thank you, Carol. I started tonight by saying that exactly what Vic just referred to, this idea that when I talk to people in town, they feel that they're not part of the same Maplewood, that there's Maplewood, Maplehood, and Maplegood, which is absolutely ridiculous in our incredible community where we pay such high taxes. That needs to stop. We need to increase the institutional equity in our town in every level that I talked about earlier, and with respect to the issues that we've covered tonight. I'm uniquely qualified, I feel. Personally, I'm someone who gets it. I know what it's like to be marginalized and to fight for your seat at the table. I'm the firstborn son of Greek immigrants who came here with nothing. They were farmers, they were poor, they didn't even speak the language, okay? And they really fought for their seat at the table to build a small business. Yes, I grew up in a small business, a Greek diner. Surprise, surprise, right? Go Parkwood and Maplewood Diner. So I know what it's like to compete with the Waba down the street. We have to compete with the big commercial chain, the small business. I know what it's like to try to fit in a neighborhood where no one else looks or talks like you. I was the gay kid who got beat up and bullied in school. I was later the gay adult who was told, I'm sorry, but you're a second-class citizen according to the law. So I became an attorney to help others and to give back to my community. And when I came here, I did the same. Immediately, I think it was a week after George and I moved in 2.5 years ago from New York City that I went to my first Township Committee meeting. And I was so inspired by the energy, the engagement, and the pride, the local Maplewood pride. It's that pride that inspired me to get involved and to run, and that brings me here today. And I'm fortunate to have the support of those who have served before in this town, who know what the job is, and who know what it takes. And so I would say that one of the things that I've accomplished in my professional life is bringing, yes, I will, thank you, just 5 more seconds, is bringing different stakeholders together, finding common ground so that we could be more collaborative and work together. And our political environment in town has been pretty tough, as a lot of you know who've been here a long time. And it lacks the collaborative spirit that we should have to move forward on the issues that we talk about. That is what I bring to the table along with my varied professional experience. And I really, really think that you will not get someone who's going to work harder. You see me out there, right? I haven't missed an event. So, and I will continue doing that as an elected official. Thank you.
Dean. Vic?
So I'll take Dean's backhanded credit. When he came to the Township Committee, I was the mayor there when he was so inspired. So I inspire people. I guess I'm running on my record. And I think the record is pretty good. I know none of you are going to agree with me or have agreed with me throughout the whole time. We've had our ups and downs. But I've tried to get in there. I've rolled up my sleeves. I work hard. I listen. I'm out there. I see people here in the senior art project. I visit things. I try to keep a sense of what's going on because it's important as an elected official to listen to folks, to respond to their concerns, to try to work through some of the very, very difficult issues. And when you're up there, it's not just, a button that you say, oh yes, this is going to fit into this bucket, and I'm going to vote yes, and this is going to fit into that bucket, and you vote no. Every one of those votes, every one of our decisions, they're tough to make. They're tough to bring together, and particularly in a leadership position where you're trying to bring 4 of your colleagues together to make sure everyone's opinion is heard, and we work together to come with the best solution for the community. So that's what I do. I provide the leadership, I get things done, and I think that's what I would offer to you is if you vote for me, and I think many of you in this room have worked with me individually, you know I don't say one thing and do another. I do what I say, and if I can't help you, I tell you no. And I try to work, and I try to make sure, and I look for all angles that we can use to get us to success. And that's what I will do. I will continue to work hard, be an advocate, be out there, use my connections in the state, in the county, and nationally to bring home the best I can for Maplewood.
Thank you. Mike?
When I ran last year, I was proud to win the News Record endorsement. It's ironic because one of the reasons that they cited was that I was best suited to navigate the towns through shared services and particularly the consolidation of the 2 fire departments. Here we are a year later, that report that was due in November of last year that I was going to be well equipped to help with still hasn't been delivered. I think we paid around $40,000 to commission that report. You'd expect that if we spent the money to commission the report, it's because there would be savings to be had, that we thought this might be a good idea that we should explore. And so if you think about it, we left a year's worth of savings on the table. And that's one of those little things that adds up to higher taxes, less money to invest in places that we need it, and money that we don't have for our community. The reason why the News Record had felt that I was best equipped to handle that sort of an operational decision is because that's what I do. I'm a Cornell-educated engineer, degree in industrial engineering, operations research. I specialize in efficiency, optimization, and then as I got in a professional career, customer service. So basically, how do you deliver the best customer experience using the tools, technology, and people that you have in place? Wouldn't that be great to bring that to government? We could have a great customer experience when dealing with government. We're doing it in efficient ways to get more out of the resources that we have. And that's the kind of thing that I look to bring to the Township Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's your turn. If you have a question you would like to ask an individual candidate or all of them, whatever, please raise your hand. And we'll start with this woman here. Please identify yourself.
Am I the one?
Yes.
I have a big question.
What
about
is your, excuse me, what is your name?
Oh, Carolyn English.
Okay.
I have a big question about all these apartments. I've lived here 60 years in the same house. Plus I went to Columbia High School. I taught in Columbia High School. I think I really know this area. Now, why are these apartments? I do not understand. I remember the first apartment house to go in South Orange. Flyers were sent to the whole community. Do you want an apartment? Now they built a very nice one on Ridge Road in South Orange. But why are we doing that now? Why? Taxes are going to go up, schools are going to have to be built. Jack and I were one of the ones that kept that middle school. We worked very hard for that. I have worked hard to get a traffic guard on Jefferson Avenue. There are a lot of things we have done in our being in this community. And it has been, we love it. And there are a lot of things that are wonderful and that you have done. But why are we raising our taxes with these apartments? We are, because we're going to need more things to qualify for. And I don't understand the library. We've already added 2 additions to that library, and we're going for the 3rd. You're going to raise it. I can't understand.
Let's have a chance for them to answer.
But I just don't understand all this is going
Your
on.
mic, let's have a chance for them to answer.
Okay.
Do you want to direct that to any particular person?
I just want to have answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Why-
we'll
why
start
we
with-
vote? You're a nice guy, but why are you voting on this?
Well, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. Thank you and Jack for your work. And I know you have been. You come to everything. It's wonderful to see you here. So let me answer the second part of your comment first, the library. Mike is wrong. We're not tearing down any of the library. We're building on the library that exists right now. We're putting a second floor. So we're not tearing anything down. We're expanding it by building a second floor, by reconfiguring the first floor to make it lower so that you come in right off the street and not have to go up ramps or stairs to come in. We're creating also a community room there instead of down in the basement like you've all been to. It will be right off the street, which you can access during the off hours, so we wouldn't have to keep the library open on a Saturday or a Sunday when we're having an event there. So just to be clear about that, we needed to think about a new library, and we have a lot more planning to do with that. And the other night, we committed to continuing the conversation. We're trying to get this funding done with the state and move forward with there. So let me talk. Oh, go ahead.
And I just want to say, we have funding in the police department too, and then we changed it and put that off in the other area of this.
We didn't get funding for
You had
this.
funding and you built apartments there. I don't know if you did, but anyway, they were built there where there had been previous flooding.
Okay,
Why?
So let's just talk about, it's a good example. You brought up the old police station. So the old police station was sold to a developer. It was built. There's 50 units there. They're apartments. They're for rent. They're generally rented. There's vacancies come up now and then, but people want to live there because they're right next to the train. We have people who move there. They're either couples or individuals. But that place, the former police station, it's the third highest taxpayer in Maplewood. They pay $325,000 a year in taxes. The building over here that we're talking about, the Maplewood Crossing, there's 126 apartments there. They're paying $230,000 to the town through a pilot project. So it's an abatement project. This little building out here is going to be paying $106,000, $27,000 to the town, $61,000 to the school district, and the balance to the county.
Is that why you're building for the taxes?
Some of the reason is to build for two reasons. You build because this is a private. These are private developers who are buying land, and we work with them to make sure that they're doing the best for Maplewood and just not building what they want. So we have design standards, we have negotiation with them. We talked about community benefits. One of the people up here mentioned community benefits. If you walk around this room, the apartments across the way put $145,000 into this building in repairs as part of the deal to get that apartment built. We have a new kitchen, we have new bathrooms, we got a new roof here, we got a new room next door in our arts and crafts room. So that's what we do. We work, so some of it is for taxes. The other thing is it provides housing opportunity for two forms of folks that we want to get in Maplewood. Number one, we want to keep people who want to stay here but can't stay in their house anymore. Empty nesters, people who want to downsize, and frankly, even people who get divorced. They end up renting here because they're able to stay in the school district with their children. The children can spend some time either with mom and dad in the house, and then sometime either with mom and dad in the apartment. So that's one group, but it's the empty nesters and people who need to downsize. The other thing is we want to attract childless young couples. They spend money in restaurants, they spend money in our bars, they spend money on up and down Springfield Avenue, on Maplewood Avenue, Irvington Avenue. They go to the movie theater. So we want an opportunity, and I can tell you the number of people. It's more than a handful that I've just run into who have said to me, "Oh, I started in Maplewood. I lived in Maplewood Crossing, or I lived at the station house." In fact, one of our township committee members moved to the station house when he moved here, and then he bought a house. Many people move here before buying a house, test it out, and then buy the house. So it's all a progression, it's all a jigsaw puzzle that fits. We're not building nilly-willy, we're building with a plan, we have a plan, and we're following.
I'm going to say, I think, excuse me, I think we better give someone else a turn. And let me remind my timers that we have 2 minutes for responding. Does anyone want to say anything else about this question?
I'd like to say just a couple words. So, your story resonates with me, and I hear it from many residents. You've lived here 60 years, so you've got a much larger kind of book of experience than even myself in the last 10. But the reality is, if you're sitting here and you're listening to this and you're deciding who you vote for, you can vote with, is it working or not? Do you feel that the apartments have benefited you? Have you seen your tax bills go down? I can speak since, Mayor DeLuca, I think you said you've been on the committee for 18 years. In the last 16 years, your taxes have gone up $20 a day. The average tax bill in 2000 was around $6,000, $6,500. Now it's well up over $15,000. Another 3 years without a change, you're going to be another $1,000 a year that you're paying in taxes. Something's got to change, or we're going to lose people like the Englishes, and that's just terrible. And I'm committed to making those changes, to having bold discussions.
I just don't want to degrade the town, and I think
Because you're investors. Appreciate that.
I think we have that here. Dean, did you want to add anything, just to be clear?
Yeah, just very quickly, I think we covered this topic earlier as well. This idea that we have reached a saturation point with the apartments, and we need to focus on everything else around the apartments that is important: pedestrian safety and commercial places for people to walkability and those kinds of things that are really, really important, because where are all those people going to go? I don't know what the figures are exactly, how many people rent here and then actually stay in Maplewood. I mean, these apartments, I know this is going to change going forward because there are new state mandates, but most of these apartments are not affordable. They're not. And the affordable units in them are like 1 or 2. Now, again, granted, I want to be honest with everybody. I don't like to play dirty for purposes of winning an argument. The state has mandated that we change that going forward and have a higher ratio of affordable apartments when these things go up. But we're talking about $4,000 for a 1-bedroom. Those are Manhattan prices. So who is moving here necessarily to test it out? I think it could hurt some people in terms of giving them the opportunity towards home ownership. And yes, I'm glad to hear that it helps people stay here who otherwise can no longer afford to stay in their homes or want to downsize and not pay the ridiculous taxes to the school district anymore. I wanted to go back to one thing about the library, which is that, just quickly about the library, which is that the concept, which is now available on the library's website. If you were not available to come to the presentation, it is now available on the website. Go take a look at it. It is one of the most conservative and appealing concepts that we have seen of all the architectural firms that submitted a concept to us. It really, truly is. And in fact, to counter what was said earlier, it restores the library to its original glory. The last major renovation 50 years ago was terrible. It changed the entrance. It closed it off. It made it dark and gloomy inside. And this concept doesn't change the footprint. We're not building out. We're not chopping down trees. The proposed plan is to add a second floor that would create more space and meet the community's demands, a lot of light. It would be sustainable in terms of solar panels and energy efficient, and it would open up the library to the park. That is one of our greatest assets in Maplewood, is that park. And our library is part of the campus. And we should really, really support this expansion and the referendum, and hopefully we'll be in a position to be able to pay for it.
Okay, I'm going to go on. Does someone else have a question? I'll start.
I'm Marie King, and I live down the street, 192 Burnett Avenue. I came here wanting to talk about the oversaturation, I think, of the building, but that has been covered. The other question I have about it is, have we thought about the impact it will have on the schools? Because down the line, you're going to need to either add on to the schools you have now with the overcrowding, or you're going to have to build new schools because of all the apartments that are going up. But what I want to talk about is something different. The business district. We are right beside, my condos are right beside the business district. And when I moved there, there was a company, a toy company, who rented out parties, things for kids' parties. They were very quiet, there was no problem. All of a sudden, this Harrington's movers moved in there. And I can't tell you the noise that those trucks make going out in the morning, coming back at night, and the soot. I can't even open my windows. This was in the past. My windowsills had black, not just me. I'm on the board there, so I was fighting for everyone. I've called the police 1,000 times. I even got the mayor involved, and he helped a whole lot. He really did. But my thing is, I think that the planning board and the township committee should give a lot of consideration to who they let move where. It's fine to bring in the company, because I know they're gonna bring in a lot of tax money, but us collectively also bring in money. And I don't think it was a good idea to put a trucking company, right? Only thing that separates us is a fence. And the houses, those townhouses are right next door, and the trucks park right up against their fence. And there's a state law about idling. Those trucks would idle for an hour, and you could see the black smoke just coming out. I feel the police people are very nice. I have a relationship with Lieutenant Kish. He'll send down, not that kind of relationship. Police will come out, but they don't issue tickets. And it's a state law. You can only idle 3 minutes unless you're an ambulance or police car or fire department. Those guys, one day I watched them, they idled as long as they were loading one truck and filling it another truck, and they idled the whole time. Just
Okay,
sitting there
do you
idling.
want to direct your, I think,
I don't understand.
do you want to direct your comment or question to us?
Anybody, I don't know. Anybody
Okay,
who wants
and I want to
chime in.
remind my timers that there is
I got 2 more for questions. We're done with questions. 2 more minutes to answer this one, and we're done.
That would be a ruling. There's a ruling.
So can I just talk about the idling for 1 second? We just had a meeting on Monday of our sustainability committee, and the prosecutor was there, and she's on the committee. And one of the things she said is that she has instructed the police to start giving tickets out for the idling, because we have the same problem in the Wawa. We have the problem at the train station. We also have a problem of people idling and leaving their cars and going into the stores and getting it stolen. So all in all, it's just better not to have the cars idling. So we are now going to be doing more on the idling. So please keep calling Kevin Kish and keep that relationship going. And we are going to try to get this. There's no reason why those should be going like that.
Yeah, they should get tickets. Thank you.
Does anyone else on the board want to add a comment?
Yeah, I want to thank you for your comment, and I know that the new, I guess, religious institution that moved in on that block too has made it tough on like Sunday mornings with all the parking and blocking the sidewalks and the crosswalks. And the light is, for me, that light doesn't fit with the culture or the feel of our neighborhood, the sign that they have. With that being said, I did go over and talk to them about the light to see if it does meet code, unfortunately. I tried to get them to at least turn it off at 10 o'clock, and the response was that people's souls need saving at all hours. So it's hard to argue with that. But I did want to touch on one thing that the mayor mentioned about design standards. So we do have design standards, and they're in place to protect you until they get waived. And that's what we've seen. These companies, these developers have gotten variances. DiPietro's, the beloved Italian market on Springfield Avenue, there was a variance that was granted there, and now we're getting an apartment building. These are all decision points that we have, and as leaders and representatives of you in the community, I'd like to represent your views.
I'm going to override the timers and see if there are any more questions, being that I am the moderator. And it seems like there's some other questions. So we'll go to that side of the room this time.
I'm going to continue the topic, I guess, a little bit on this development theme, but hopefully in a positive sense, in reaction to what some of the people are saying. And my question is to the panel members. do you believe that we might be able to better communicate these plans, particularly long-term plans that ultimately lead to development? And also, could we be better at validating what we actually do? And what I mean by that is that Mike mentioned guidelines, which I interpreted to be planning and visioning that results in the laws. And I think Dean referred to bringing broader expertise to assess which in negotiation or execution. I used the term validate. I asked, might we do better at validating how well we met the intent of the guidelines and how well the projects were executed, particularly if there was community input involved? How do we aggressively seek validation from the community so that at the end of the day, we all understand what was planned and what happened?
Do you want to direct that to any
I would
particular?
like to hear from all the panel members.
Okay. Does anyone want to start? Dean?
Thanks for the question, Dave, and thank you, Carol. As I said in the beginning, I think our development process could use an update. And maybe we should consider and look into our master plan, which is pretty old at this point. Back in 2004 or 5, I think, was the last time we did a comprehensive, and we did a re-exam in 2011. Does it still reflect the nature of our always changing community, right? And once we decide that it either does or we need to do a new one, we most definitely need to have community input going forward. What are those guidelines going to be? What is important to the community? What reflects the character of all of our neighborhoods or of the impacted neighborhood? That is a very important thing, and we should maybe consider having an advisory board that works together with the planning board. Volunteers from the community, and we do have expertise, folks who would be very excited and willing to do this and to offer their expertise and to help us negotiate these deals so that we could figure out if they are ultimately deals that benefit the town. It should benefit the town, and the impact matters, and we should negotiate in the best way possible for the town. It isn't right what Mike says, that I think Mike meant to say this in a different way, but this idea that developers are always going to do what developers want. That's not true. It's up to us, the township, to strong arm and negotiate in the best way possible and say, no, you know what? You're not going to get that until you give me affordability, or you put money into a trust so that I can make senior housing, or you help me refurbish the building next door, or something like that. You know, these are really important considerations, and the way we've done it is really a little bit old and doesn't reflect the high density in our neighborhoods right now, and everything that we're suffering as a result of it, including pedestrian safety issues, public safety issues, and environmental concerns as well.
Okay, I'm going to ask. Does anyone want to add anything? Should I dare I ask?
Just one comment. I mean, I agree with the sentiment of the question, which is the time to be having these conversations is now, when we're talking about, you know, what do we want our neighborhoods to look like? What does this block, you know, what do we need? What do we want? And not when we have individual businesses that then become polarizing and we're discussing whether we should have X business or Y business. So I do support re-looking at the plan, publishing it, getting community engagement and dialogue. And just to clarify my comment around the developers, they're going to do what they're able to do, and their best interests are their own, and it's up to, you know, government to help, again, put those guidelines in place to make sure that their interests match with ours. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one thing that definitely want to focus on, and it's a little difficult, is this notion that the apartments are generating school children. They're not. We know that. We have evidence of that. It's tough to get information from the school board because there are privacy issues and things like that. But we know from their information, just on raw numbers, that we're not generating students out of those buildings. There may be preschool students, there may be infants there, but as school-age children, that's not occurring. Also, we look at the rents. You know, I know Dean used 4,000. That's not the typical rent for a one-bedroom in Maplewood. Avalon Bay, as a one-bedroom, is under 2,000. Over here, it's under 2,000. I mean, still, you'd have to have a good salary to live there, but not everything is 4,000. So we're looking at rents. We're looking at what the rents are. That's another indicator. You know, there's been some recent comments about the building across from Seth Boyden on the corner of Boyden and Tuscan Road. We had a meeting right here in this room with probably 50 people. I know Bill was here and a couple other people from the area there. And we met with the developer and we talked and he made some changes and we went through that. We've done that on all these projects. You know, the land use law allows developers to buy land and build according to the zone. Now we can go in and look at that zone. We can make some changes to the master plan. I think that's in order. The master plan re-examination is 2011. It's either good for 7 now, they actually push it for 10 years, but nothing says that we can't and probably should look at something. One last thing is that I just wrote a proposal to the state. We had a meeting yesterday with the Department of Community Affairs. They're going to come in and they're going to work with us on a plan for Maplewood Village, a vision plan as to where we're going forward. It's going to include a lot of stakeholder meetings, charrettes. We had a big charrette, excuse me, in planning for a redevelopment area too. We had a huge charrette at Seth Boyden School where people come out and have ideas. When we were talking about Springfield Avenue, where Walgreens is and all that, I remember a meeting over at the Hilton Library and people, you know, putting out their wish list of what they want. So we do engage the community. Oftentimes it's the community right around it, and we try to broaden that. But we do have these conversations with folks. We do enter these ideas into a plan, and then we follow the plan. If you look at the plans, and some are old, that you'll see that we're following the plan. This is not just willy-nilly.
Okay. All right, this is the last question. Yes.
Oh, I'm always last. My name is Angel Perez, and I guess I'm a newcomer in town when you compare me to the Englishes. We've been around for about 40 years. You mentioned the budget for the improvement at the library. 15 million, was that the number?
22.
22 all in.
22 all in.
That's interesting. All that.
I guess the number 15 sticks in my mind because I think that might have been the original budget for the new police station. But it ended up closer to, remind me, was it 60 or 57 or?
No, 22 was the new police station.
The new police station? And it started out at what?
I don't know. I wasn't on the township committee for those 2 years.
Oh, okay. Well, it started out at a low number.
It started lower than 22.
Do you have a question to ask right
that
now?
it was comparable to renovating the old police station, so it made more sense to have a new one, and the budget ran away. I just call that to your attention because I think we need to pay attention to what we say going forward and stick to it as opposed to incrementally jack it up. We have a lot of things going for us in this town, big town.
Do you have a question that you want to
I'm
ask?
getting there.
Hurry up. Let's get to the
I
question.
don't know. I think this is the way people become informed by learning some of the history of the town. We have a lot of things going for us in this town, but yet every time I read an article about Maplewood, or very often anyway, we're always ranked somewhere down the list from good places to live. I just don't understand it. I think it was NewJersey.com ranked us at 144. And articles regarding our school system, we're down the list. What can we do to really address those kinds of issues that talk to the quality of life issues that people, you know, not just we know that it's good, but how can we get the word out and have people understand that we're really closer to number 1 than 144?
Are you directing this to anyone?
I'll just say, I met with the realtors from Wycott. Every year I meet with them, and I'll tell you that they think we're number 1. We have better sales, we have more interest, we have lower inventory in Maplewood than in South Orange and West Orange and Short Hills. People want to move here for what we represent. For all those warts that you say we might have, people want to move here. The NewJersey.com, I think, listed us as 144. No, I'm sorry, New Jersey Monthly listed us as 144. We've been in the 10 top hottest towns in New Jersey in the Star Ledger. We've been in the top 10 for LGBT support and friendly. People know Maplewood to be what it is, and that's a progressive, good place to live and bring up your children. And that's what we're doing. This is a family town, and we're continuing to move forward in that direction. And I don't think some of these things are going to put us on top, some put us in the middle, maybe some even down near the bottom. But overall, you know, the best downtown, best place to live in America, New York Magazine, talked about it. School system's still there. So we have to work together. I'm very happy that we have a strong interim superintendent of schools that we can work with. And I think he'll set in place some things so that when we have a permanent superintendent, we can continue to move forward with that. Schools are very important. I mentioned trains, but the top list is schools. People move to town because they want to have confidence in the schools. That's absolutely critical. And what we're doing is we're working closely with South Orange and the school board to make sure that we're keeping our schools up and making improvements. So you got schools, you got train, you got livability, safety. Those are all the things that we're doing, and I think that we're ranked. And if you talk to people who are talking to folks who want to come into Maplewood, they'll tell you we're number one.
Yeah, well, this
I just want to
safety seems to be a big concern right now.
All right, I think we answered the question.
I wanna
We're
just
going to,
weigh in real
did you
quick.
ask? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that result and I was upset. I mean, I'm a proud Maplewoodian and I was annoyed that we showed that poorly on the list. I mean, I spent my whole life in New Jersey. I know many of those towns and I felt like we're better. But then I am an engineer, so I went to the data to say, okay, well, what were they looking at and how did they rank us? It was debt load. Our debt load is high. This year, 13% of our budget is going to pay for debt. We added another $2 million in debt this year, and it's not an economic crisis. We didn't have a massive expense that we had to cover, no emergency. And so when you look at us against our peers, they don't have that type of debt load. Taxes, we've all talked about it. We seem to accept that if you live in Essex County, you have to have to have high taxes. But yet there's other Essex County towns that were ranked higher than us on the survey. Crime was up there. It was significantly up there, and I think that's a function of where we are geographically as opposed to some other towns, but it's still something to consider. And schools are listed too. I think the schools are listed as like number 60. As a resident who plans and who's committed to this town, this all concerns me. But you can't ignore the data just because it doesn't paint the picture you want. The data is real, and we need a township committee that focuses on fixing those things that impact all of us.
Okay, I'm going to, thank you, Mike. I'm going to move on to the final thing, which is a closing statement. And I'm going to ask the timers and the speakers to make it 1 minute, since I think you've covered, unless it's,
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's fine. 1 minute, so will the timers get to
Pay attention.
Okay, and you're rehired. Okay, so I sort of lost, let's see, we start, Dean, I think we start with Vic.
Well, thank you again, Hilton Neighborhood Association, for tonight, and thank you for coming out, and from almost everybody stayed to the very end, so we really appreciate that. Elections are about the future. When you drive your car, you look through the front windshield, you don't look at the rearview mirror. But looking at the rearview mirror is helpful because it shows what you've done. I think my record is there, but I'm looking forward. I'm looking at what the next wave of Maplewood is going to be. We've got people here who are moving here who bring new energy and new interests, and we have to tap that and bring them to the table, get them involved. I want to do that. I want to get the civic engagement level up for our people who are here, like the Englishes for 60 years plus, and also the new people who are here for 60 days. Like when Dean said he went to his first meeting right away. That's what we want. I went to my first meeting 8 days here, and that's what I want to do. I want to get people involved, get people to be involved in making decisions, sitting on the decision-making bodies, being involved in making Maplewood what they want it to be going forward. So that's what I'm looking to do.
Thank you.
Again, thank you to the Neighborhood Association and all of you for joining us. I wanted to spend more time on the second question around police force training. I didn't feel 90 seconds was really sufficient to get into something that is a very significant issue to many in our community. I just wanted to highlight a couple things. One, with the incidents that we've seen around the country in the past couple of years, none of this should have been a surprise to Maplewood. We shouldn't have just started diversity or
bias training. We shouldn't have just be sending 18 people to a de-escalation training. We had the roadmap in front of us, and the leadership failed to implement it. When we were here for the Hilton Neighborhood Association meeting and the police from Eno came and spoke to us, he referenced basically doing the minimum, the state standards, and he was following the guidelines. I think it's key that when we hire our next police chief, we get it right, and we find someone that doesn't just do the minimum, but does what the community needs. And I hope that the Township Committee will take that responsibility very seriously. It's probably more important than this election, who we get hired as police chief. So thank you, and hope you guys enjoyed it tonight as much as I did. Thank you all for coming.
And Dean?
Thank you, Carol. Thank you again to the Hilton Neighborhood Association for hosting us this evening, and to all of you for staying all this time to listen to us. I invite you all to go to my website where you can see a lot more about me and my qualifications and my experiences and what I stand for. There's a lot of content in there, so please go to deandaffis.com. Feel free to email me directly at dean@deandaffis.com. Very easy. I'd love to speak to you and get to know you better and find out about what's important to you. Mike mentioned the police situation in town and what happened, and that there was lack of leadership. But when we protested that night after the tapes came out, when we marched to the town hall to say that, Mike didn't join us. He was there in the park, standing idle, not with us. When you are evaluating him and me, the non-incumbents, we don't have a record yet, right? You are evaluating us on qualifications to do the job, the legal job, the executive job, the administrative job, and you're evaluating us on authenticity and sincerity. Who has walked the talk? And I could say, and I know many of you, we've worked together in the community, I have certainly walked my talk. And I hope I've earned your trust as you get to know me better before Election Day. And it's very, very important that we work together to really address the significant lack of institutional equity in our community, which is why people come here, yes, they're attracted to coming here, but when they get here, they're disappointed in many ways, because we have not truly realized our promise to be truly inclusive and integrated in one Maplewood that works for all. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone.
Carol, can I just get 30 more seconds, just because Dean referenced me in his last statement. So I was here at the park. I was here for National Night Out. I was here with part of the 4th of July committee, which I serve on, which I didn't mention further. And I didn't march with the group, and mostly it's because they were chanting the police are racist. And I don't agree with that characterization of our police officers. It's just, I don't think it was fair. I think it was an overgeneralization. And it bothered me being in the park with many of these officers who work very hard and serve this community, to have them characterized that way. So I think you do have to be careful with where you align and where you march. It's not easy. I'm sure Dean didn't set out that night to go march with that kind of chant being made. But I do want to let you know where I stand. I didn't think that chant was appropriate. I think it is appropriate to stand next to our police officers on National Night Out, and I'd gladly do it again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That very quickly, I promise. Very quickly.
I won't rebut whatever you rebut.
I just want to say that we were marching to protest what happened. We were not marching against all police officers. In fact, I was at the park too with you, Mike, and I spoke to many officers who said to me privately, if they could, they would march too, because they were also offended by what happened. There was racial bias in that incident. There was, and there have been other racial bias incidents in our community, and we have to deal with that, and we have to face it and accept it and do better to eradicate it, not say that it didn't happen. It did happen.
Okay, I'm going to, you don't need. Okay.
Can I say? Just thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much. In the back, and I hope we'll see you on October 19th when we have 7 or 8 candidates to express their ideas for the Board of Education.